Well, say go. This is Big House. I wanted to bring you a story because I have no other way to keep it from getting lost. This is a story of Prohibition times on the reservation. Now, I wasn't there, but as I'm walking with my mentor, Son Aguade, I'm about waist high, and we pass this old hulk of a rusted out old Chevy. And in the back was bullet holes in the trunk and in the back roof and by the window. And I just could not help but ask him, Son Aguade, what happened to the old Chevy? And he said, well, that's from back in the Prohibition days. You see, alcohol was outlawed in this country years ago. The reservation, St. Regis Indian Reservation, sits 2/3 in Quebec and 1/3 in New York State. So there isn't any such thing as illegal smuggling because you can simply bring anything on the reservation, liquor, cigarettes, gems, whatever, on the Quebec side and walk it off on the New York side, and the border does not affect you, so it's not illegal. So one of the prime employments of the time was smuggling, and alcohol was the smuggling of choice. Well, it seems to be. Now, I have to apologize in advance because I wasn't there for this story. Son Aguade is long past, and I have searched this story out with the elders for about 5 years and have found there are no elders left to tell this story that were there and remember the details. I remember the story from Son Aguade like it was yesterday. Son Aguade means does everything with his left hand, which he did. He was left-handed. Now, I remember this story like it was yesterday because, man, I just couldn't be more intrigued by the bullet holes in this Chevy. It was about a 38 Chevy. I remember it was a Master Deluxe, and it had bullet holes in the back, in the trunk, and around the rear window. The glass was not broken. Well, here's the story. In the Prohibition years, it was a moneymaker. The only income you had was to smuggle. And at the time, like I said, Canadian blended whiskey was the smuggler's choice. So these three boys took a 38 Chevy, tore out the liner to the trunk and the back seat, and put a tank in the back seat and a tank in the trunk. So they probably had, I would guess, I'm just guessing, probably 400 gallons of liquor in this car. Well, they'd done this before, and they had their own route planned through the backwoods around my grandfather's pond and back on the reservation. It worked out fine because the roads, once you got off the main road in Quebec, it was all just farm roads, cow pass, dirt pass, deer pass, whatever, but they had it set out so you could disappear into the woods. Coming back one night just about at dusk, they're cruising along, everything's going fine, they got a full load, heading for the border. Now, you can't go across the border with 400 gallons of booze, so they have to take the back roads through Quebec to the reservation. When they go to make the turn, just before they go to make the turn, they see car headlights through the woods turn off. And as they slow down to look down their dirt path, a little farm road going down through there, there's a dozen cop cars waiting down this road. So obviously they can't take that. Well, they took off running, and the cop cars come out to chase them. They go to the next road. Now the next road they look, and that is full of cops too, which come out and start chasing them. So there's RCMP, OPP, which is like the Sheriff's Department in Quebec, and the RCMP is just like the FBI in the U.S. They're chasing them. Well, every single path had a car in it, whether it was a cop car or not. It was really getting kind of dark and they couldn't tell, but they were all blocked going back onto the reservation. So there was no other choice. They couldn't turn around and run back into Quebec. They had to keep going towards the reservation, so they decided to just run the border. Now, the border patrol that are at the border crossings are not armed. So they figured, well, what the heck? All we can do is run the border, take a left-hand turn after the border when we hit the U.S., and just take the back roads onto the reservation. Well, it happened to be that night but I'm not sure whether it was the sheriff or the state police, were in just shooting the bull with the border patrol people. The border guy goes out and they can see this car coming just lickety-jingle. And back then, 80 miles an hour was a really fast speed. So they're coming on this border crossing, just doing maximum speed of this Chevy. Well, the border guard steps out in front of the car to stop them and puts his hand up, which is not a good idea. He jumps out of the way, and at the last minute, the trooper jumps out of the door, draws his service revolver. At the time it was a 38 or a 38 special, I'm not sure, but I imagine that's what it was. And he fires and unloads the 6 shots into the back of the car. Well, they all hit like the trunk and the fender, and one of them went through the piece of metal that holds the rear window in, the trim. Back in those days, these are heavy cars. Well, it went through the back window along the edge, never broke the glass, and the boys said, well, we made it. And they turned around and looked into the back seat. I also have to apologize because I don't have the names of these 3 boys. Son of Guadi told them to me, but sure, I was just a little kid. But anyway, they looked in the back seat, and the boy in the back seat, the 2 in the front seat are 17 years old. The boy in the back seat's 15. He's laying there, I guess, dead in the back seat, bleeding all over the place. They panic and run onto the reservation, and just on the edge of the reservation was an old horse doctor. Now, he's just a veterinarian, but he's way up there in years. And his wife. Well, they pull into their driveway, which is the first place on the reservation. And they're obviously their only choice because, man, there's state police, OPP, RCMP, sheriffs, everybody chasing them. They pull in, unload the boy, carry him to the house, and the old horse doctor carries him into the kitchen table. Well, he starts working him over, and it seems the bullet went through the rear window and had just enough power left to lodge between the boy's skull and his spine, right at the top of his spine, and it totally paralyzed him. The doc turned him over and started working on him. He took a piece of wooden spoon or wood or something with a point on it, and he drove it down in the bullet hole. He cut the bullet hole open, drove it down in the bullet hole between the skull and the spine, and relieved the pressure on the spine enough that the boy came to, or at least he could move. In the meantime, a whole barrage, like a SWAT team of today, pull out in front of the doc's house because they've got him now. Jump out of the cars, there are guns and shotguns and Tommy guns and all that kind of stuff. Run up to the house. The wife, old lady, got to be in her 90s, runs out, grabs the head FBI guy by the throat, and she said, "You dirty SOBs." I can't repeat all the language she used, but she called him everything but white. And when she got done with that, she called him white too. She says, "You guys have got a lot of nerve. You are out here in the dark shooting children. That boy you shot is 15 years old. Now you get your little butts back in your car and you go home, because I'm going to call your wife right now. I know her. And then I'm calling your mother and telling her you're out here shooting children." He turned pale and just turned around and got back in his car, and they all left. Well, the doc pulled the bullet out and put a couple stitches in the back of his neck, and the boy walked out just perfectly fine, and never heard another thing from it, and got to deliver the liquor. Now, like I said, I was just knee-high or waist-high at the time when I heard this story, and I cannot find an elder on the reservation or anywhere old enough to remember the names or the dates or anything like that. So I just did not want this story to get lost in the shuffle. So this is why I bring it to you. Take it or leave it. This is Big House saying Ona, which is see you later.